Have you ever wondered what it takes to be a fighter pilot? Today, we're talking with Casey Campbell. And in her words, she's a retired colonel who served in the Air Force for 24 years as a fighter pilot and senior military leader. She has flown 1,800 hours in an A-10 Warthog, including more than 100 combat missions protecting troops on the ground in both Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2003, Kim was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for heroism after successfully recovering her battle-damaged airplane after an intense close air support mission. Most recently, Kim has served as the director of the Center for Character and Leadership Development at the Air Force Academy. She is also the author of the best-selling book, Flying in the Face of Fear, A Fighter Pilot's Lessons on Leading with Courage. Thank you for being here, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, and tell everybody from your words, just give us a really quick synopsis of what your career has really been like.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy because I never thought I would stay in the Air Force as long as I did. I had this dream as a young girl to become a fighter pilot, and I just knew that it would be fun and exciting. And then I started flying and I started loving the mission and loving what I was doing. I found this passion and purpose and flying the A-10 and supporting our troops on the ground. And then I got the opportunity to lead these teams, small and large. At one point, I was leading a team of more than 1,000 people throughout South America and Central America. And I just found that I loved it. I've had this passion for helping others on their journey, and I really enjoyed it. And so I stayed a lot longer than I ever thought I would.
So, what is the coolest skill you learned but you never thought would matter? And it really did, and it does.
Yeah. So this might sound a little surprising coming from a fighter pilot, but the best skill I ever learned was how to overcome motion sickness. I mean, as a kid, I got sick in the car. I got sick on carnival rides. I had air sickness issues. So getting over motion sickness, best skill I learned because obviously it helped me in this career that I had of flying airplanes for 20 plus years.
And I can imagine with you being in air combat, you were doing what they do on, we've got to reference this because everybody knows it,
Of course.
Top Gun. So
Yeah.
you were doing all of that, weren't you?
Yeah. And I think the reality is with many things, the more you do it, the more you practice, the more, in this case, with motion sickness and air sickness, my body adjusted and I learned how to get through some really hard times when I wasn't feeling great, focusing on this mission and job that I really wanted to do and kind of push past the hard part so that I could get to do the job that I love.
Here's a question for you because I know you do a lot of speaking engagements, and I know you're out there in front of the public and you're handing your business card to people or your books. And just say you have someone who looks at you and goes, well, describe yourself with 3 words so that when I pick up this card from this huge pile that I have, I remember exactly who you are. What 3 words would you use to describe yourself?
I would say that I'm hardworking, determined, and resilient.
I love those. I use some of the same words.
They're pretty similar, but I think they individually, they don't share enough of the story. I think all 3 together really define a little bit for me what's
Yeah.
behind the resume, what's behind all the flashy, I don't know, all the good things that we put on our
Yeah.
resume. There's a lot more behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work there that people don't see. What is the weirdest situation where one of your skills saved the day?
This one actually goes back to high school for me. I ran cross country in high school, which I absolutely loved. I love running. And this was our, I think, conference finals. So a big race. And we race in a park in San Jose, California, where I grew up. And the start of the race is everyone is all packed into this essentially like a parking lot. So big open space, but everyone is kind of packed in here for us to get started. And then the gun sounds and everybody wants to race to get out in front because once everything condenses, now we're on these single track trails. And the gun sounds that day and everything's normal. I've got this plan to go race out in front. And the next thing I know, another runner had accidentally stepped on the back of my shoe, which you can imagine, and it came off in the middle of this race, in the middle of the finals. And I am just, my mind is racing as fast as I can of like, what do I do? Do I stop and put my shoe back on, which I can't even see because there's this mass of runners, or do I just keep running? I had this split second thought and I was like, well, I can't stop because then I'll be at the back. So I'm just going to keep running. So I ran 3 miles without a shoe on. I didn't win the race. I mean, let's be honest, trying to run trails
Yeah.
without a shoe in 3 miles was a lot, but I think I proved to everyone, my coach, my parents, how determined I was, um, to go out and do the best that I could and face a little bit of resilience along the way.
What has helped you more, learning how to talk, listen, or recover after messing up?
This one is a little bit hard for me because I think it is important that we speak up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves. So there's the talk piece. I think it's important to listen, especially if you're leading a team, being able to listen to others, listen to their ideas. But the thing that has helped me most is being able to recover from mistakes because the reality is, despite how much we would like to be perfect, perfectionism is not, well, it may be a thing and that's something that we want. But the reality is, we're going to make mistakes on our journey. We are going to do things that are incorrect and we have to be able to get back up again. I learned that more than anything at pilot training because there was no perfect flight. There was no perfect ride. You were going to make mistakes. And the reality was the instructors were watching you to see how you
Yeah.
responded in that moment. It wasn't the mistake. It was, could you get back up again? Could you recover, learn from it, don't do it again, but then move on?
And that segues perfectly into um, my next question for you. Because in the terms books, the girls are always trying and failing and trying again. Aunt Loxley gets them back up by their bootstraps and they keep going. Ray, who is one of Addie's best friends, is getting her glider pilot certification. So in book number 6, The Gravity of Choice, she is out there getting ready to try to solo and has to make this instant decision to save herself and the glider because of thermal. Now, what is something that has happened to you that some might say was a failure, but it really trained you for success?
Yeah, this happened very early in my career. Like I said, I had this dream as a little girl to become a pilot. And my surest way to get there was for me to go to the Air Force Academy. And so I did everything in school. I mean, I worked hard, I studied, I got good grades, I played sports, I started flying. I did all of these things. I eventually soloed an airplane as well. So I felt like I checked every box.
Mhm.
And I waited every day after school. I would go to the mailbox to wait for this, what I was hoping was an acceptance letter to the Air Force Academy. And finally, the day came. I go to the mailbox. There's an envelope there. It's got the blue logos for the Air Force Academy. And I rip it open and it says, I regret to inform you. It was not an acceptance letter, it was a rejection letter. And that hurt. I mean, I was devastated. It was everything that I had worked for, tried so hard, and that essentially said that I wasn't good enough. I mean, that's my determination from it. And I think in that moment, I had a decision to make. I could step forward and keep pushing on this dream, or I could step back and quit. I chose to step forward. I wrote the Air Force Academy a letter every week, letting them know what I had done to improve, whether it was more push ups, pull ups, sit ups, an A on a test, you name it, I wrote them every single week. And then finally, in June of my senior year in high school, I finally got the long awaited acceptance letter, which, my hard work, that persistence, the resilience, it all paid off. And I used that rejection for me, that failure as motivation. And I would later go on to become the number one graduate in the Military Order of Merit and lead the entire cadet wing, all 4,000 cadets as the cadet wing commander. So I think sometimes it's that rejection, the failure gives you that spark, it gives you the motivation, it gives you the fuel to keep going.
Makes you stronger. That's an
Absolutely.
amazing story.
Absolutely.
Girls, write down notes right now, okay? You need to listen to her. What is one small thing a kid could practice this week that would help them later?
All right. So this one for me is the fighter pilot debrief, right? I'm a
Mhm.
fighter pilot. I flew
Yep.
A-10s for 20 plus years. And the one thing that we do after every mission is we debrief. And that means that we talk about what we did well because we want to repeat it. But we also drill down into the mistakes that we made. What was the root cause of that mistake? What lessons did we learn? And then what will
Mhm.
we do differently next time? I think this applies to sports, it applies to school, it applies to so many things in life, even personal conversations with our friends, with our parents, with our family. I think if we can do just a quick little debrief afterwards and really think through how did that go? What did we do well? And what are we going to do differently? What are we going to do better next time?
I have that conversation with every single one of my military friends after we do something together, and I love that as a wrap up to a project because it really does help you
It's
in
been
so
so
many.
helpful for so
Yeah.
many things in life for me, especially when we make mistakes, right? Especially when we fail, because we can be pretty hard on ourselves and critique ourselves. And there's a point where it's not productive. We have to
Yeah.
really look at the core of why we made the mistake and then let's learn from it. Let's move on.
How to get better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Last question for you. What are 5 skills that you use every day?
Yes, there are so many skills that I like,
Yeah.
and so many of them come, from flying. So, the first one for me is prioritization because we can get overwhelmed by all the things that we have to do. I love checklists. I will make checklists. It's a pilot thing, obviously, for me, but I love to write a checklist and just prioritize for me what's most important. Where can I best spend my time? And then preparation. I'm a big I believe that preparation gives us competence, which then leads to confidence. So it's doing the work. It's that hard work. It's really thinking through things, doing, studying, practicing all those things that you need to be successful. But I do believe that preparation, putting in the work, anytime I feel nervous about something, I go back to put in the work. I'm also a believer in skill number 3 would be planning for contingencies because I think that in life things aren't gonna go the way we want all the time, and so just thinking through a little bit, what are the things that could go wrong? And most importantly, it's not just fretting about the things that go wrong, it's how are we going to react if they don't go exactly like we want them to? And I think that's just helped give me, again, confidence to move forward when things get hard. The debrief is huge for me. Like I said, I do that every day, probably in everything that I do. I do a quick little debrief at the end of each day. How well did I do about those things that I said that I would do? And then the last one for me, I think a key skill in anything that we do is clear communication. And we talk in flying about communicating clearly, concisely, correctly. And so that's something that I try to do every day with my kids, with my team. I think it's just a critical skill that we can all work on.
And I just want to expand on one thing you said because I am a pilot too and used to fly a lot of my own private airplanes. List. I talk about checklist all the time with all of the girls that I work with. So just really expand on the checklist because I am a true believer in that everything that I do and as I set up any new program, I'm always putting together the checklist. And
Yeah.
a program doesn't go out unless there's a checklist for everybody.
I love a good checklist. I have checklists for a lot of things in life. I think, so in flying, the purpose of a checklist is that we don't miss something critical. It's to
Mhm.
when, in an emergency, especially, we make sure that we follow the steps. So we're not missing anything that's critical. It also means we don't have to memorize everything because we have a checklist to help
Yep.
us, with those steps. But I think, a checklist is so great because it can help us with packing our bag for the day. I mean, my kids have checklists to make sure before they go out to practice, do they have these things in their bag? Before I go do any sort of speaking event, I have a checklist of have I covered these things? Have I gone
Mhm.
through these things? When I travel, I have a checklist to make sure I have covered all the things that I need to do. I just think it's really critical. I think it helps reduce the stress because we have it. And then I think the other key thing is you go back and you update the checklist, oops, I forgot about that. Let me add that to the checklist. So I just think it helps with all that prioritization. It helps us with all the preparation. It can even help us with the contingencies that we face.
Thank you for being on the show with us, Kim. Everyone, go check out what she does on her YouTube and LinkedIn channels at Kim-Casey-Campbell. You'll also find her on Instagram and Facebook. All of the links are going to be provided below, so don't worry. And take a look at her website, Kim-Casey-Campbell.com, to get a copy of her book, Flying in the Face of Fear, A Fighter Pilot's Lessons on Leading with Courage. And thanks for watching Books That Build Skills. If today's story sparked an idea, gave you courage, or helped you see what's possible, then it did its job. Now remember, skills aren't born, they're built. One choice, one challenge, one brave step at a time. So hit subscribe, share this with someone who needs it, and keep exploring, building, reading, and dreaming big. I'm Loxley Brown. This is Books That Build Skills, and you're just getting started.